One of the lessons we want to do tonight, we've been talking about authenticating this book. The problem today is, as being Israel, coming into the knowledge of who we are, is you're going to be challenged because you can't authenticate this book. Before I do that, don't forget tomorrow at 1 o'clock we'll be on live. That's our regular service tomorrow at 1 o'clock, so you all can tune in also. Authenticating this book is a big issue. And when you authenticate this book, it gets challenged. It's going to get challenged because we're Israel. This book is about us. It's our history. It's our roadmap to the plan to salvation. In order for me to authenticate this book, it's best that I use what we call a scientific approach. And the scientific approach is when you have a hypothesis, you must prove it. And if you can prove it with facts in your data, then the conclusion with scientific evidence is that if it happens, you can prove it, then it must be true. And especially if you can do it more than once. So if you can prove this Bible more than once, and you must use outside sources to prove the Bible. If you cannot prove it with outside sources, then it's okay. It's just that you are a believer of this book. The issue is that when you're a believer of the book, when you tell people things about this book from the outside of this belief system, it's going to be challenged. Like any other scientific evidence, it's going to be challenged because it's almost like you are in a world of your own. It's going to be challenged more today, especially if you're saying that you're the people of the book. It's really going to be challenged. The authenticity of it and the credibility. So in order to do it, you have to prove its source. So we're going to start off this lesson. I want to get over into Babylon, so I'm going to ask, I've got a crew member, she's running around. She needs to go back and fix that camera, though. I think it's going to be okay. Okay, we're going to make this quick because we're already behind. And I'm not going to go fast. But I'm not going to waste time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the book of Daniel, where we were starting off from the last lesson. The book of Daniel. Okay? You have that up there? Yes. No, not the 70 weeks. I want to go with the one with that we had the statue. Okay? Slide 5. Go ahead and begin with slide number 5. Okay? Now I'm going to tell you where we're going to be reading from. We're going to be reading from the book of Daniel. And what we're doing is we're going into the dreams of Daniel. And the reason why we're going into the dreams of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar is because these two guys had dreams and visions. Their dreams and their visions were the same. And they talked about who was going to be the kingdoms of the earth. Okay? So whenever prophetically somebody can tell you who are going to be the kings of the earth, the kingdoms of the earth, then you can go and prove that in world history. Then pretty much what you have is an authentic book. So do we have that? Okay. I don't see it. She's getting there. Okay. It's up there now. Okay. Now, we're going to start off in the book of Daniel, what chapter am I at? The 9th chapter. What chapter am I at? Tell me what chapter I'm on according to that slide. You may need to back it up a couple just to show where we are. I want that particular slide. Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Go to Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Go back to that original slide. Now, let me tell you what happened here. Daniel had a dream. In Daniel's dream, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. In Nebuchadnezzar's dream, he could not figure out the dream. Couldn't figure out what the dream was about. You want to do it that way? Yeah. He couldn't figure out who the dream was about. And when you cannot figure out who the dream is about, he prayed. He asked God, he says, I want to know who among Israel, who among all of the kings and priests of the earth can tell me what this dream is about. So nobody could. Nobody in Daniel's nobody in Nebuchadnezzar's entourage, when Nebuchadnezzar had the dream, let me slow down and get the names right. When Nebuchadnezzar had the dream, nobody could tell what the dream was about. What he was dreaming about is the future. Nebuchadnezzar is going to kill a lot of people, including Daniel, because he wanted to kill all of the prophets, including the ones that were Israelites. But what happened, Daniel prayed, he asked for time, and he got the interpretation of the dream. So in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, let's go to verse number 29, we were at. And it says this: As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what shall pass hereafter? And he that revealeth secret things make known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Okay, so what happened is the Almighty gave Daniel the dream for Nebuchadnezzar. And let me just tell you, this was a unique dream because Nebuchadnezzar, this thing was hard. He said, not only do I want you to tell me what the dream means, I want you to tell me what the dream was. He forgot the dream. It was just a horrible dream. The man forgot the dream. So he says, I want you to not only tell me what the dream is about, but tell me what dream I had. That was difficult. And they said, nobody can do that, king. Nobody can. We can interpret the dream, but there's no God in the world that would even ask to anybody to even do that. Not even the gods that we serve can answer that question. But we do know that a God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could do that. So let's continue to read. Where are we at now? Verse 31. He says, Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was fine gold, his breasts and arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part clay. Thou sawest tell that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them in pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Okay, so number one, he tells Nebuchadnezzar, this is what your dream was. You saw a statue. You saw 4 different layers, and it was there. And you saw a stone that came out of nowhere that was not made with hands. And that stone struck the tall statue in its feet, and the whole thing disintegrated, and that stone filled and became the mountain over the entire earth. Okay? So now let's get into the interpretation of that dream. Okay? So let's go to the next verse, which is verse 36. And this is the dream. And we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, powerful, power and strength and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, the fowls of heaven, hath he given in thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head. So first of all, he tells Nebuchadnezzar, you're the head of this. The statue, you are the head. Let's look at verse 39. And after thee shall rise another kingdom. This is number 2, inferior to thee. And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdued all things, and as iron breaketh that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom, meaning he's talking about that fourth kingdom, shall be divided, but there shall be in it of strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. We're going to get into that kingdom in a minute. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. Now he's talking about the stone. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all the kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Okay. Verse 45. Do we have a verse 45 up there? We don't? Okay, stop there. Now, so let me, because we have people here, so I'm looking at you all and I'm looking at the people. Let me say this. Nebuchadnezzar's dream was about the earth and what was going to take place in the future. What I'm going to show you tonight, that he saw 4 kingdoms. The first one was himself, which was Babylon. There were 3 other kingdoms that came after him that ruled the entire earth. The issue is the 4th kingdom, people think it's the United States, is a world. It's not. Okay, we're going to get to who it is and why they are in charge today. From a biblical perspective, I'm going to show you that. And it's kind of far-fetched until you see it in the Word, see it in the encyclopedia, and then understand the system. So let's go to our next verse. And I believe that's Daniel, the 7th chapter. Daniel, the 7th chapter. Am I right? Put that up on the screen. Daniel, the 7th chapter, verse 7. Now, we're going to move quick here. Now, let me say this. Daniel, we're going to be reading from Daniel, the 7th chapter. We're going to read verses. We're going to start with verse 1. So let me just say this to you. Daniel understood Nebuchadnezzar's dream. In Nebuchadnezzar's dream that Daniel interpreted, he knew that there was going to be 4 kingdoms that were ruled over the earth. What Daniel did not get in Daniel's dream is who those kingdoms were going to be. So Nebuchadnezzar's dream was really for the Israelites who were in captivity in Babylon. But Nebuchadnezzar had to get the dream because he's the ruler. He was not an Israelite. He was not a part of God's people. He had God's people, Israel, in captivity. Okay? So he had the dream, But Daniel interpreted his dream and he said there's going to be 4 kingdoms. You're the head. After you's going to be a second, a third, and a fourth. The fourth one is kind of disrupt. It's there, but it's not really there. It's got power, but it really don't have power because it's mixed with iron and clay. Now we're going to understand why that is set up. Not only we're going to understand that, we're going to find out who those kingdoms are. So let's go to the 7th chapter of Daniel, and let's begin with verse number 1. Remember, the statue had 4 parts. Look at the 7th chapter, and we're going to read with verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. So when you have a dream, you always write the dream down. Verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the earth, strove upon the great sea. The 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now, look at this. Let me say this. Notice in Daniel's dream, he sees 4 beasts coming up out of the sea. We know that the sea is the earth or the people. That's what we do know. And we're going to show you that in a minute. But notice that Daniel sees 4 beasts. Notice also that Nebuchadnezzar's statue had 4 parts, and they were 4 kingdoms. The first one was Babylon. He says, you are the first one. But there's going to be another one after you, a third, and a fourth. So I wanted to highlight the 4 parts of the statue and how Daniel is now seeing 4 beasts come up from the earth. Now let's continue to read. Let's pick it up in verse number 3 again. The 4 beasts came from the sea. They're different one from another. Listen to the first one, verse 4. The first was like a lion, and it had eagle's wings. I beheld the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand up upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear. It raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. After this, in verse 6, I beheld, and lo, another like a leper, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And after this, do I have this on verse? Yes, verse 7. And after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces. It stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you where I want to go at. What's the next slide we have? Pictures. Go to the pictures. The first beast is Babylon. Babylon, according to world history, started in 605 and they reigned to 539 BC. Remember, in BC was before the AD time. As you work down, the numbers get smaller, okay? Whereas now that we're in AD, our years get higher, like 2010, 2011, 2012, because we're in the AD era. But in the BC era, it started and it moved down, okay? And when it moved down, it eventually goes to 1 BC. Then the next year after that is, if you think of it positive and negative, it doesn't go 1, 0. It goes 1 BC. Then next year it jumps to 1 AD, okay? That's the way it went. Okay, So Babylon reigned from 605 to 539 BC. You can look that up. You can find that in any world history book. What's the next slide? The next one was the bear. Okay, keep going. The next one was the leper. Keep going. And the next one, he couldn't even describe it. Okay? It was just a beast that he could not describe. Keep going. I'm sorry. Now, I'm not going to read the 5th chapter of Daniel because what the 5th chapter of Daniel talks about how the kingdom was taken from Babylon to the Persians. Okay? And, well, I got a few minutes. Let's go back. Let's read that real quick. Daniel, the 5th chapter. This is how the kingdom left Babylon's hand to Persia's hand. Now, stay right there for me. Stay right there for me. Okay. Is that Daniel 5? What I'm looking to find in Daniel's dream, he names the kingdoms. So what I want you to do, stay on Daniel 5. Stay on Daniel 5. Belshazzar was Nebuchadnezzar's son. I'm just going over this real quick. In verses 1, 2, and 3, he was having a party. And that party was a Saturnalia party. That's Saturnalia. Saturnalia is Christmas. You can trace it all the way up to what they did. They have a lot of drinking. It's just a wild party. Nebuchadnezzar, while he was in charge, Belshazzar, because his father Nebuchadnezzar died, he's in charge. He's having this party. He decides that he wants to go to the vessels that belong to the children of Israel, get them out of the vault so they can have more utensils to party with, to drink out of. When he did that, that upset God. Okay? So let me see the next verse. They drank wine and they praised the gods of gold and silver, brass, iron, of wood. Keep going to the next one. In the same hour, what Nebuchadnezzar saw, he saw some fingers, some handwriting on the wall. And let me tell you, I'm giving you all the verses that are watching us live, but I'm just telling you the story. Write these scriptures down. The next thing you know, he got so scared. Look at verse 6. His knees started to shake because he saw handwriting on the wall. Okay, keep going. In the next verse, you can go there. We're going to skip over to verse number. Now, when he saw the handwriting on the wall, concentrate on verse 7. The king cried aloud because he sees this handwriting on the wall. So he says, bring, and the handwriting wrote something on the wall. He couldn't interpret it. It was probably written in Hebrew. And because they are Babylonian, they don't read Hebrew. So what he says is, bring the astrologers, bring the Chaldeans, the soothsayers. The king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler of the kingdom of Babylon. The problem is none of those guys could do it. If y'all remember, his father, Nebuchadnezzar, those same soothsayers, they couldn't interpret it either, right? So what they did, they knew, go get Daniel. Go get that Hebrew boy, because he is an interpreter of dreams. So none of those guys could do it. So we're going to skip over into this story. Where we're going to go at next? We're going to go to verse 17. Daniel gets the charge. He does it. Daniel comes in and he's reading it. He says, then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself. I don't want your gifts. I don't want your rewards. But I'm going to read the writing. And I'm going to make known to you the interpretation. Because it's in Hebrew, and I'm going to tell you what it says. And it says in verse 25, many teke upharsin. And he says, this is the interpretation, king. And look at verse 26. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, God have numbered your kingdom and finished it. So Babylon's getting ready to be over. Why? Look at the next word. You have been weighed in the balances, and you are in trouble. You are found wanted, you in trouble. And look at verse 28. The kingdom is divided, and it's going to be given to the Medes and the Persians. So right now, you see a transfer, according to Daniel, you see a transfer of kingdoms going to the Medes and the Persians. All right, let's keep going. Don't go to there. Keep going. Just go through the slides, and I'm going to have you speed up. I just want to see them. Okay? Go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. In the book of 2 Chronicles, what you'll find is how they got, how Israel was taken in bondage by the king of the Chaldees and under the Babylonian government, and how they took all the vessels. But keep going. Where we are now. Yes. I don't want to read that. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Now, this is from the encyclopedia. This is I'll give you the source at the end of this, but I'm going to read it to you. Cyrus, and I know why I put Cyrus in there, the book of Ezra. Go back. Go back. We have to go back to Ezra. Right there. Go right there. Now, we had Ezra 1:1. Now, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, and he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it in writing and saying, this saith King Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven, have given me all the kingdoms of the earth. Now, I wanted to bring that out because remember we said in Daniel that the kingdom was given to the Medes and the Persians. Here is showing that he is now the king over all the earth. So you had Babylon, now you got the Medes and the Persians. Because remember, Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel told him, you are the first head. There's going to be a kingdom come up after you that's going to be inferior to you, right? This is that kingdom. So I want to put that back up, and I want to read that what he says. He sent out a proclamation throughout all his kingdoms and put it in writing. And this is what he put in writing. Verse 2. Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and hath charged me to build an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. I wanted just to read that verse. Come back over here. The reason why I wanted to read that verse is to let you know that God, the Most High, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, although the children of Israel are in bondage, he puts Cyrus in charge. Cyrus then sends out a proclamation because now he's filling these Israelites. He's filling them. He said, these people are powerful. These people can interpret dreams, and they're powerful. In fact, the Almighty gave him a dream and told him, go out I'm making you the king over all the earth. Send out a decree that whoever wants to go to Jerusalem, any Israelite, no matter where they are, because remember, the king of the earth means you're the king of every kingdom. Although they have kings, you're the king over all of them, and they listen to you, okay, because you're the king over all the earth. And when you go back and look at world history, what you'll find is that Babylon, Persia, and the kingdoms that came after that, I don't want to name them yet, they always allowed those that they ruled to work autonomously within their own and have their own culture, as long as they paid tribute to the King of Kings. So Cyrus is the King of Kings. And Ezra, what he did was, the Almighty put a dream upon him and told him through Jeremiah, go and build the temple in Israel. Go to Jerusalem and build that temple. And he sent out a letter that if there's any Israelite that obviously is in captivity, allow them to go and build that temple. So I wanted to bring that up to show you that Cyrus was the next person in charge, because what happened that night, Belshazzar dropped dead. And the Persians came right in while they were having that party and took over. Where are we at now? Now I'm going to read to you in the encyclopedia, okay? So let's go to the encyclopedia, that very next slide, and it says this. Cyrus the Great ruled the largest empire of his day. Now this is not out of the Bible, this is out of the encyclopedia. I'm going to give you the source in a minute. And is known for granting many freedoms to his subjects. Over the centuries, many kings and conquerors have been given the moniker, the Great, but some say that the figure who deserved this title the most was Cyrus the Great, the ancient king of Persia. Even though he was born and ruled more than 2,500 years ago, many modern leaders today still claim Cyrus as their primary inspiration and hero. He was a brilliant military leader, but he is even more revered as a wise and tolerant ruler. Once Cyrus conquered a nation, he allowed those other realms he absorbed to manage themselves and to keep their customs and religions. Cyrus was said to have respected the basic human rights of the common man more than any other ruler of his time. It goes on to say, according to historians, Cyrus was either born in 600 or 575 BC. He lived in Persia, a location that today would be within the country of Iran. His father was Cambyses I, king of Anshan, and his grandfather was Cyrus I, ruler of Anshan before his father. Cambyses I died in 551 BC, making Cyrus the Great king in 559 BC. Cyrus was born between 25 and 40 years old. I'm sorry, I didn't read that right. Cyrus was between 25 and 40 years of age when he became king. That is the closest historians can get it, within 15 years. Let me continue to read. At that time, Cyrus's power was divided between a number of other powerful states in the region, with the Median Empire holding a large amount of influence over Anshan. During this time, Cyrus was subservient to the Median king and was conquered to pay homage to him. Now let me stop there. Do you remember the dream that in Belshazzar chapter 5, he says that your kingdom is going to be given to the Medes and the Persians? That's them. So I can prove to you in history, if it says that the king of Persia was the next one that took over, the encyclopedia is showing you how the Medes got involved. That, number one, substantiates the authenticity of this book. Okay, so let's keep going. Becoming the king of Persia. With the help of a rogue Median general named Arpagus, Cyrus revolted against the entirety of the Median army and conquered them in 549 BC. So now he takes over the Medians. Upon his victory, Cyrus was able to combine Anshan with the newly defeated empire and crowned himself the king of Persia for the first time. So what we have here is we have the Medes and the Persians. That is the second kingdom that Daniel knew that was going to come after Babylon. Okay? And when we read that in chapter 5 of the book of Daniel. Now let's talk about the death and tomb, because you got a man in the Bible who's called Cyrus the Great, who's over Persia and the Medians. Now let's find out what the world history continues to say. Cyrus the Great died in battle around 530 BC and was succeeded by his son Cambyses II. He was buried in a pyramid-like tomb in Pasargadae, which is located in modern-day Iran. Now, y'all know I'm not going to say these names right, so you already know that, okay? So I'm going to do the best I can. Okay, let's continue to go. Where are we? Now, Daniel, the 8th chapter. Because we read Daniel, I think we read this. Okay, Daniel, the 8th chapter. Daniel, the 8th chapter, tells you how these kingdoms start to come up. In the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me. I'm at Daniel, the 8th chapter, verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar, Belshazzar is the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel gets a dream. Look at verse 2. I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was in Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Then lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood up before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up first. Keep going. And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a noble horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So the goat runs into the ram. The ram was doing everything he wanted to do. But what Daniel said, this goat came from nowhere. He had one notable horn between his eyes, and he hit the ram with the power of his fury and anger. Fury is anger. And there's a reason why he hit him with the anger. Why? We're going to find out who this goat was and why was this goat angry. He hit the ram so hard, he stood over him, knocked him out, and stomped on him. Let's keep going. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with the choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, stomped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and he became, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four horns, four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. Keep going. I'm going to skip down to verse 15. And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. Because remember, Daniel has already, this is Daniel's second dream. Okay? Now, this is important. He interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dream. He interprets Belshazzar's dream. He himself has a dream that these four beasts come out of the earth. A lion, a bear, a leopard, and something else that he couldn't even tell what it was. Now he is having another dream, and the Almighty is going to give him a breakthrough on all of these dreams that he's been having. So let's get back to this. He wanted to know, he saw the appearance of a man in verse 15. In verse 16, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. Now, Gabriel is an angel. He's a messenger. He is who God uses. This is the same Gabriel that came to Mary 400 years later. So Gabriel is one of God's top messengers. Verse 17, so he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell on my face. But he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Meaning that it's not happening now, it's going to be at the time of the end. This is future stuff. That's important to know. He says, what you seeing now is happening in the future. Okay? And that's important to know, because now we're going to continue to get into the authenticity of the book. Now, let's go back to that verse. He says in verse 18, now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. Are you all cold? A little bit? Good. Hold on. We got to fix this. Y'all hold on, YouTube. You know, see, you all at YouTube, I don't know if you're at home. I don't know what you're doing, but we have 2 air conditioners at Bethel because we want to make sure people stay warm. Okay, now here's the breakthrough. I want you to take the 8th chapter, and you're going to have to circle it, because I went back and forth to give you Nebuchadnezzar's dream, statue in 4 parts. Daniel sees 4 beasts, and Daniel is seeing these rams and these goats, and they knocking each other out, and now he's going to get interpretation of what the 4 kingdoms are. Listen to this. He says in verse 19, and he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For the time appointed, the end shall be. Let me say this before y'all read the next verse. Daniel is now going to know in chronological order who are going to be the 4 kingdoms over the entire earth. And we're going to prove it to you in the encyclopedia. But let's first name who they are. So you want to circle that 8th chapter and the verse that we are. Where are we right now? Verse number 19. Now we're going to read, I'm going to read 19 again. He said, behold, I will make thee to know what should be in the last end of the indignation, for the time appointed, the end should be. The ram that you saw having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. So if Babylon is in charge, the next one, when Belshazzar died, is the Medes and the Persians. That's the ram. He just told him that the Medes and the Persians are the next one in line, right? Let's read. The ram which thou sawest, verse 20, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. Verse 21, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia. The great horn that is between his eyes is the first king of Greece. So you got Babylon, You got Medes and Persians, and you got Greece, or Greek, or Grecia as they called it. Listen to this though. Now, that being broken, remember there was a notable horn, and it broke in the other chapter, it broke in the other verses. When the goat became strong, it had a notable horn, and then it broke, and then it says, up came four horns from the earth. Go back and read that. Go back. I want to show that to the people on YouTube. Nope. Yes, verse 8. Daniel 8 and 8. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, in other words, when he came into the fullness of his power, the great horn was broken, and for it, as a result of that, came up four notable ones toward the winds of heaven. But those four horns are still a part of the goat. Now keep going, go back up. Now, verse 22, now that being broken, or as four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Okay? So what Daniel is saying here, with what Gabriel showed him, this ram that you saw is the Medes and Persians. The goat is Grecia. It had one king. It became great. It broke off. The king died. And four kingdoms came up from Greece. Let's keep going. Next slide. Okay. Now, I'm going to read from the encyclopedia. You know, with the other encyclopedia, I gave y'all information on Cyrus the Great. That came from Britannica Encyclopedia. Britannica. Okay? Britannica. So this information I'm giving you came from Britannica, and also Growler's, Grolier, Growler's Encyclopedia, okay? So basically I just took the information, cut, copy, and paste. I went to the internet versions of those encyclopedias. Okay, so let's read this. Alexander the Great served as king over Macedonia from 336 to 323 BC. During his time of leadership, he united Greece. He established the Corinth League and conquered the Persian Empire. Wow, that's big, because you got world history telling you that Greece conquered Persia. Daniel prophesied it before it became world history. I can take the book right now, I can close it up, because I have used, I'm not going to do that tonight, but I have using the scientific approach of establishing a hypothesis, using the scientific method. Once you prove a fact multiple times, then it makes the book authentic. So with this book, using world history, Babylon was in charge, Persia took over, and going here, Greece conquered the Persians. That's in world history. Let's continue to read. Conquering the king of Macedonia, Alexander the Great was born July the 20th, 356 BC in Pelia, in the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia. During his leadership from 336 to 323, he united the Greek city-states and led the Corinth League. He also became the king of Persia, Babylon, Asia, and created Macedonian colonies in the region. Why is he becoming the king of Persia and Babylon and Asia? Because he is the third kingdom in line. When he told, Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, there's going to be a first kingdom, a second kingdom, and a third kingdom. I showed you in Ezra where the king Cyrus said, I am the king of all kingdoms. Here now, Alexander the Great, he is the king. Now this is coming right out of the encyclopedia. He also became the king of Persia, Babylon, and Asia, and created Macedonian colonies in the region. While conquering the conquests of Carthage and Rome, Alexander, check this out, died of malaria in Babylon, which is now Iraq, on June the 13th, 323 BC. Let's keep going. Let's keep reading about this guy because it gets better. In 336, Alexander's sister wed the Molossian king, an uncle who was also called Alexander. During the festival that followed, King Philip II was murdered at the hands of Pausanias, a Macedonian noble. Now, King Philip is Alexander's father. They killed his father way back during that time. Now you want to know why the goat came with fury against the Medes and the Persians. This guy was upset because his father was killed. In the wake of his father's death, Alexander, then 19, was determined to seize the throne by any means necessary. He quickly garnered the support of the Macedonian army, including the general and troops he had fought with at Charonia. The army proclaimed Alexander the feudal king and proceeded to help him murder other potential heirs to the throne. Ever a loyal mother, Olympia further ensured her son's claim to the throne by slaughtering the daughter of King Philip II and Cleopatra, and driving Cleopatra herself to suicide because he's a younger guy. It goes to the older children. Keep going. In 334, Alexander embarked on his Asiatic expedition. Arriving in Troy that spring, Alexander then faced Persian King Darius III's army near the Gracious River. Now, right here, remember Daniel had a dream about the war before it even happened. Before Alexander the Great even took over, he said, I saw this ram going northward, eastward, westward, going anywhere he wanted to, and then I see a goat come from nowhere who barely touched the ground, meaning he came into power very quickly. And it came out of nowhere with fury and struck the ram and stood over him, and there was nobody that could deliver the ram from the goat. We read that. Let's go back to this. I love this. I love it. Listen to this. Alexander then faced Persian King Darius III's army near the Gracious River. Darius' forces were swiftly defeated. Didn't we say that goat hit him so hard? By fall, Alexander and his army had made it across the southern coast of Asia Minor and Gordium, where they took the winter to rest. In the summer of 333, the troops of Alexander and Darius once again went head-to-head in battle at Issus. Although Alexander's army was outnumbered, he used his flair for military strategy to create formations that defeated the Persians again and caused Darius to flee. So in November of 333, Alexander declared himself the king of Persia after capturing Darius and making him a fugitive. Wow. Let's go to the next slide. The death. Let's talk about the death of Alexander because four horns came up. While considering the conquest of Carthage and Rome, Alexander the Great died of malaria in Babylon. We already gave the date. He was 32 years old. Roxana, which was his wife, gave birth to his son a few minutes later. Now remember, although he's dead, his son is heir to the throne. Look at this next paragraph. After Alexander died, Again, this is coming from Britannica and Groller's Encyclopedia. After Alexander died, his empire collapsed and the nations within it battled for power. Over time, the cultures of Greece and the Orient synthesized and thrived as a side effect of Alexander's empire, becoming part of his legacy and spreading the spirit of Pan-Hellenism. Keep going. Now, there's a source, Groller's and Britannica, and there's also the biography. You can go to thatbiography.com. When you go to biography.com, put in Cyrus, put in Alexander, but that's the source. Where are we at now? Now, I'm not going to go there. Okay. Go back. Yes, we have to. Now, Daniel, in the 11th chapter of Daniel, he says, I also in the first year of Darius, now he's under the Medes and the Persians. Daniel's outlasting everybody. He's there, because he's in captivity as a young boy with the Babylonians. Remember the 3 Hebrew boys? They called them Meshach, Shadrach, and a bad Negro, Abednego. The 3 of them and Daniel they refused to do a lot of things. They stayed Hebrew. Daniel prayed. These 3 boys refused to bow down. They refused to eat the same food. The story goes on in Daniel. But what happens next is Daniel is now living through Nebuchadnezzar, Babylonian king. He dies. Belshazzar, he's still living. His son dies because the handwriting came on the wall because he went down there and took the vessels of Israel and decided to use them in a Christmas party called Saturnalia. That's another lesson. And then now the Medes and the Persians comes in. So this is Daniel's 3rd king, which is Darius over the Medes. 11th chapter. Let's read this. I also in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all the realm of what? Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken. And that's now Grecia. That's the king of Grecia. And when he shall stand up, in other words, when he gets into his power, as soon as he gets up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven. Meaning there's going to be 4 parts that Greece is going to be divided, that Greece is going to be together, but it's going to be divided into 4 different areas. And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. Let's keep going. Now, according to the encyclopedia, there were 4 generals that took over after Alexander took over Grecia in the encyclopedia. Now that right there is another hypothesis using scientific evidence that you can see. Daniel says there's going to be 4 parts of that kingdom, and here are 4 generals, and here's how they came into play. Listen to this. Alexander the Great died and was fighting among the people for who would reign. After Alexander the Great died, I don't know what I just read. Let me just read that again. After Alexander the Great died, there was fighting among the people for who would reign. A single ruler did not arise, as he was succeeded by his diatocha, which means 4, or successors. 4 of his generals arose and take part over the 4 regions. So remember, we read in the scriptures that there's going to be a notable horn that's going to be broken. And after, on that same goat, which is Greece, there's going to be 4 areas, but it's still under Greece. But what happened was these 4 generals decided to break the territory of Greece into 4 areas. They were Macedonia, they were Asia, Syria, and Egypt. Keep going. That's in the encyclopedia. Alexander the Great, as we read that, he suddenly died. I want you to look at what I got highlighted. The kingdom of Cassandra, the kingdom of, I can't say his name, the kingdom of Seleucus and Ptolemy, Simucius, and New York. If you are watching, don't you laugh because I cannot pronounce that name. Neither you either, old school in Alabama. Don't y'all laugh. Okay, keep going. Now, this just talks about the struggle. I'm going to let you all read that on your own because Greece continued to struggle being in control. Let's keep going. Even though the kingdom had been divided between them, the Diadocho, which means 4, still continued to fight with one another. There were frequent outbursts of violence as they sought to gain each other's territory. So basically, I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to tell you what happened. There was about 6 or 7 generals. Once Greece agreed to divide it in 4 territories, these different generals were fighting among each other. There was about 7 who was going to rule over, or which one would rule over the 4 areas, okay? So let's go back up here. And you can read that in the encyclopedia. Let's keep going. Go to the next slide. Okay. Now, let's get to this last beast. Daniel 7:7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. We read this, but I'm going back to it for a purpose. And strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. It was diverse from all the beasts, that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And I'm going to let you know who it is. It was Rome. According to the encyclopedia, Rome defeated Greece. And Rome in 70 AD went in and wiped out every kingdom. Whereas, now I'm going to show y'all how the 4th kingdom is still in charge. We know it's Rome. You can read that in encyclopedia because the 4th beast defeats the 3rd beast. Okay? How are they still in charge? They're still in charge today because remember, it says that it is with iron and clay. It's in part. It's not together, but it's there. But the kingdom is not together. So how is it there? Constantine the emperor, Rome decided to change its strategy. Babylon, the Medes and the Persians, and the Greek allowed everybody to operate autonomously. Now this is important. What Rome did, Rome sent Emperor Constantine to say, listen, we're not going to have any divided countries. Everybody's not going to do what they want to, so let's see what we can mingle together. When you read about Constantine, he came to a point where I got those that believe in God, which was Israel, but I got all these other countries, they believe in everything. They believe in Ra, which is the sun, the moon. You had some believing in Olympius, the wind god, the moon god, all kinds of gods all over the place. what Emperor Constantine did, he mingled what we know as the Bible, or Christianity, we can say, and mingled it in with all these other religions. Christmas, Easter, this is why you got the Christmas tree, and it don't exist in the Bible, other than in Jeremiah the 10th chapter. You ever read that? You ever read Jeremiah the 10th chapter? Oh, I'm going to read it. So you all with me, go to Jeremiah the 10th chapter, and I'm just going to read it, because this was a warning that God gave to the children of Israel. That's in Jeremiah the 10th chapter, and I'm just going to read that, because the where I'm going at right now is I'm showing you that how Emperor Constantine brought in idolatry, and this is why we are worshiping the sun and Jesus at the same time. Somebody said, what do you mean we're worshiping the sun and Jesus at the same time? Sunday. Sunday. Okay? All right. So let me read this. Jeremiah the 10th chapter. I don't have it on the board, so you got to listen to me. Hear the word of the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. So don't be trying to worship the sun, the moon, astrology, Astarte, all these other gods. Don't do that, okay? Listen to this, verse 3. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. Verse 4, they deck it with silver and gold, and fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright like a palm tree. It don't speak. It must needs be born, because it's not alive, because they cannot do anything. They can't move. But be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil. Neither also it is in them to do good. That's the Christmas tree. When you take a Christmas tree in the old songs, deck it with silver and gold, okay, that's the Christmas tree. That's Saturnalia. Babylon did it. That's where it came from. That's another lesson. I'm not getting into that tonight. Astarte is Easter, but I'm not getting into that tonight. But what I'm trying to show you is, I'm blessed to have an audience tonight, because they saw us on YouTube earlier, and they came. And so I'm glad that they're here. So anyway, what happened is when he mixed these religions in together, you start to have what we call Christmas, Easter, Sunday, and it's really no fault to anybody, because Israel being in bondage, it became indoctrinated with this mess over slavery. And Catholicism is what brought it on. The Catholics, or the Romes, brought this mess. And so some people say, I'm not a Catholic. I say, yes, you are. If you bring in that Christmas tree, that came from Catholicism. If you having service on Sunday, yeah, I said it. That's Catholicism. I'm sorry. It's just, it is what it is. I can't sugarcoat it. It's getting too late in the day, Israel. Wake up. Wake up. We got to come up out of this mess, okay? We have to wake up. God is waking us up from all over the place. Wake up. Christmas, Easter, all this came from pagan worship being mixed in with this word of God. And how is Rome still in charge today? Rome is a small city that sits on 7 hills that has its own country, but yet it rules the entire world through its indoctrination of its ideology of religion, bringing stuff in. And it's ruling today. It's the 4th kingdom that's still in charge. United States may have the biggest army. Russia's creeping up now. Who cares? It says that the 4th nation, the 4th beast, and I didn't read that, I wish I did. The 4th beast, according to Daniel, does not rule with hands. So if you're not ruling with hands, how else do you control people? Right here, with this. And some of you Egyptology people out there, if you get a hold of this, ain't nothing wrong with this book, okay? This book is simply giving you history about what's happening, and there's no other book that does that. No other book that does that. So I'm going to stop this right here, and I'm going to go into the 70 weeks of Daniel, and it's going to be in 15 minutes, and we're going to get out of here, okay? So y'all hang with me. She's going to go to another PowerPoint presentation. Now, I'm going to show you what we're going to give you. Daniel had a dream. Well, I'm talking to you all as well. Daniel had a dream about 70 weeks. And in Daniel's dream, he prayed. He wanted understanding. And let me back that up. He did not have a dream. He prayed because he was reading Jeremiah and how in 70 weeks, Israel was supposed to be freed from captivity. So he knew, being under Babylon, Darius, the Medes, and the Persians, he knew the 70 weeks was up. But he was going beyond the time. So he became confused. Do you remember what slide I told you to start off with on that? You have it? He became confused. Why are we still in bondage? Why it seems like we're going beyond this 70 weeks. So you're going to find out that the 70 weeks or the 70 years, it was 70 years, not 70 weeks. Some of y'all know, the scholars know what I'm talking about. They were supposed to be out of bondage in 70 years. And it was going beyond the 70 years. Now, Daniel was a young man, so he was coming in the latter time of those 70 years, and he couldn't figure out why Israel is still in bondage. So he went on his knees and he started to pray because he had read the book of Jeremiah and he's confused. Israel is supposed to be free. We're supposed to have our kingdom. Let's look at this real quick. Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 3. I set my face to the Lord and to seek by prayer and supplications and with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. When you don't understand something, people, you need to go on your knees. I'm going to skip down to verse 20 because Daniel wanted to know what was going on with these 20 years. Verse 20 says, while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God, the holy mountain, for the holy mountain of my God. Yea, while I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, here comes Gabriel again, whom I seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. Let's keep going. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of your supplications, because he had been praying for a while, at the beginning of your supplications, the commandment came forth, and I have come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. Let's go. The 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city, to finish the transgression. Now, he went from 70 years to 70 weeks. Okay? Daniel went from 70 years to 70 weeks because he knew, according to reading Jeremiah, it's supposed to be 70 years. But he says now Gabriel's telling him it's 70 weeks. But what he's trying to show him is 70 weeks, which is 70 years, but it's weeks of years. Does that make sense? So 70 weeks is 70 years, but they're weeks of years. So 70 years times 7 is 490 years. So he's getting ready to show him that what I'm getting ready to show you is going to take place over a 490-year period. Now I'm going to break this down, and you're going to be blown with your mind. Y'all remember I told you, I said this 70 weeks of Daniel is going to blow your mind. So hang with me. I know it's 9:40. I know I got started late, but trust me, this is good. Don't go anywhere, Tia. Don't go anywhere, Barbara up in Denver. Don't go anywhere, Mega Old School. Everybody else, I can't see you to give a shout out, but don't go anywhere. Okay, let's go to this. 9th chapter, verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins. So listen to what he's saying. In 490 years, there's going to be an end of what? To finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make a reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in an everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint who? The most holy. So he's telling Daniel, in 490 years, I'm going to bring an end of sacrificing animals, and I'm going to bring in the Most High, who's going to be an everlasting reconciliation. You know who that is? Jesus. Okay, let's go. Let's keep reading. Hebrews. Here is the prophecy of that. I want to skip this because you all already know that it's Jesus. Keep going, keep going. Read Hebrews, the 9th chapter. Keep going, because I want to finish this. Now, let's go back to verse 25. Now, therefore, know therefore and understand that from the going forth, now this is important, put this right here on me. Listen to the information he's getting ready to give to Daniel. I'm going to show you in World Encyclopedia history that what you're getting ready to get in verse 25 is going to be the ultimate, what I consider the nail in the coffin to say that this is the most authentic book. What you might want to do is tell somebody to tune in right now, okay? Seriously, because this is going to blow your mind. I'm going to show you some calculations that is going to blow your mind. Let's go back to this. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. Okay? And 62 weeks. The street shall be built again and the wall, even in troubled times. Now, stop there. Let me just break that verse down. We had 7 weeks, which is the number 7, and then we had 62, which is 62. 62 and 7 is what? 62 plus 7. 69. So in 69 weeks, I'm getting ready to show you the Messiah and the Most High, the Most Holy, and who he is. In 69 weeks, if 7 times 70 is 490, and I'm going to show you the Messiah in 69 weeks, that means in 483 years. Because if I subtract 1 year from the 7 times 70, which is 490, subtract 7 weeks from that, that's 483. Okay, did y'all get that? Because he says, I'm going to show you in 69 weeks. 69 times 7 is 483. He's showing him the 70 weeks of prophecy, but before you get into the last week of the prophecy, he's letting you know that in 483 years, I'm going to identify who the Most Holy is. Watch this. 7 times 69 is 483 years for the Messiah to come forth and be anointed. From 70 years to 483 years to the anointing of the Messiah. 70 weeks from the time that the commandment. Now, all of this, you're going to know when to start counting, Daniel. You're going to start counting the 70 years or the 7 times 70 weeks of years from the time that the commandment goes forth to restore and build Jerusalem. So number one, we need to find out, when will the command be given to restore and build Jerusalem? Let's go to the next slide. Ezra, 7th chapter, verse 1. Now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, the king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Sariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Elikiah, the command is given in the book. So here you're going to show that the command is given in the book of Ezra. Conspiracy was attempted to build the wall. There was a conspiracy was attempted to not build the wall. So we're in the Ezra, the 7th chapter. Keep going. Look at verse 6. This Ezra went up from Babylon, and he was a ready scribe in the law of Moses, which the Lord God of Israel had given. And the king granted him all his requests, according to the hand of the Lord his God upon him. And there went up some of the children of Israel, and of the priests, and the Levites, and the singers, and the porters, and the Nethinims unto Jerusalem, when? In the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king. Right here. In the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king, in his 7th year of his reign, he gave the command to go forth and build. God told Daniel, when the command is given, whatever year that is, you're going to be able to count out 483 years from that, and I'm going to show you the Messiah. That's what he told Daniel. Watch this. And he came, verse 8, and he came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. So we know that this is the 5th month of the 7th year of the king. For upon the first day of the 1st month began he to go up from Babylon, and on the 1st day of the 5th month came he to Jerusalem, according to the good hand of his God upon him. Keep going. For Ezra had prepared his heart, I'm at verse 10, I'm skipping, his heart to set the law before the Lord and to do it, to teach Israel statutes and judgment. Now, what he was given in verse 11 was a copy of the letter, and I'm going to read that in verse 11. Now, this is the copy of the letter that the king Artaxerxes gave unto Ezra the priest, the scribe. Now, this is during the 7th year of his reign, even a scribe of the words of the commandment of the Lord and of his statutes to Israel. Look at that word, even a scribe of the words of the commandments, because he told Daniel, when the commandment goes forth for you to build Jerusalem, from that year you can count out 483 years, 69 weeks times 7, and you're going to be able to identify the Messiah. But the whole totality of the fate is in 70 years. I'm going to show you the last 7 years, what happens. But we're dealing with the first 69 first. Let's keep going. Artaxerxes, king of kings. This is the guy who is now Artaxerxes. He's the king of kings. Now, remember, he's one of those kings over all the kings of the earth. King of kings unto Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of God of heaven, perfect peace. Now, this is the letter that he's writing. This is what the letter said. The letter says, Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of God of heaven, perfect peace and such a time. I make a decree that all they of the people of Israel and of his priests and Levites in my realm, under my authority, which is the whole earth, because he says he's the king of kings, which are minded of their own free will to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee. Keep going. For as much as thou art sent of the king and of his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the law of thy God, which is in thine hand. Skip down to verse 21. And I, even I, Artaxerxes, the king, do make a decree. Am I still okay? Is my volume okay? Everything's still all right? Okay. He says, I, the king, do make a decree to all the treasures which are upon the river, that whosoever Israel the priest, the scribe of the law of God of heaven, shall require of you, it be done speedily. In other words, here's this letter. Whatever Ezra needs, because he's going to be traveling, whatever he needs, give it to him. And whoever wants to go, let them go, of Israel. Keep going. Now, here is in the encyclopedia. Ahasuerus was probably born in the reign of his grandfather, Darius, to the emperor's son and heir, Xerxes I. In 465 BC, Xerxes I was murdered by Artabanus, the commander of the royal bodyguard and the most powerful official in the Persian court, with the help of a eunuch named Aspametres. Now, in 465 BC, now we're going to do some calculations, you all. We're going to do some calculations right here just for a minute. You all need to write this down. This is a very important slide because I'm going to show you some calculations of when this man took charge, leading right into when Jesus came. And not only does it do that, it will give you the birth date, the birth year of Jesus. Watch this. So, he began to reign, this is right out of the encyclopedia, Grolers and Britannica, in 465 BC. Now, somebody's calling me, and they may be telling me either they can't hear or something. No, they're not. In 465 BC, he begins to rule. Now, remember, he told Daniel, in the year that this man gives the command, 483 years from that, I'm going to identify the Messiah. So if he takes over in 465, remember when you hit BC, you got to subtract the numbers. The numbers go down. 465, 464, 463, 462. And so when you subtract 7 from 465, that's going to be in 458 BC. That's the 7th year of Xerxes' reign. Now let's keep going. Now, 483 years to the anointing of the Messiah, because he said there would be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. We read that in Daniel. 72 weeks and 7 weeks is 69, which is 69 times 7, which is 483 years to the Messiah. So when you look at 458 BC, the command was made. When you subtract 483 from the year that the command was given, that is 25 years AD. From 5 BC, the year in which the Messiah was born, he's 1 year old, to 25 AD, he's now 30 years old, right? 30 years old. Check this out. Jesus was anointed at the age of 30 according to the scriptures. He cannot be anointed. He was baptized at the age of 30 because when you read the scriptures, it says Jesus being about the age of 30 when he was baptized. 30 years of age is the youngest when any person can start the work of being a priest. Let's keep going. Matthew. This is important because now we're going to establish when Jesus was born. We know that took us into 25 AD. Now let's find out 25 AD. When you subtract 483 from 458, that would take you to 25 AD. Now we have to determine when was Jesus born. Go back. Now, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod, there came wise men from the east, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. When Herod the king heard all these things, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. So we know we need to look up information about Herod. I'm going to go through this very quickly. The wise men was following a star. They went to Bethlehem, they looked for the child, and when they found him, he told them, when you find him, verse 8, he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also. Let's keep going. In the 12th verse of Matthew 2, being warned of God in a dream that they should not go back and tell Herod nothing, they went another way. Now, look at verse 13. And the reason why they went another way, because the angel showed them in a warning from God, don't tell Herod nothing, because his intentions is to really kill Jesus. He don't want to come and worship him. But look at verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and be thou there until I give thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Let's keep going. Verse 14, when he rose, he took the young child and his mother by night, they went to Egypt. And look at verse 15. And there was death, and was there until the, no, I'm sorry. They were in Egypt, verse 15, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I have called my son. So in other words, they stayed there in Egypt until Herod died. That's important to know. Check this out. Then Herod, when he saw that these young men were not coming, look at the middle of the verse. He sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and down, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Let me say this. When you read that verse, he said, kill everybody 2 years old and down. Why? Because that was the time that he had inquired of the wise men, where y'all going? We're going to find this king that's going to be born. Not born yet, but going to be born. So he says, when you find him, give me word. What he did was, they came 2 years later. He realized these guys are not coming back. In fact, he told Joseph, go to Egypt until you get word. When Herod, after 2 years later, realized they wasn't coming back, he said, kill every child from 2 years old and down. That's important to know in this. Watch this. That's important to know. Where are we? But when Herod was dead, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. Let's keep going. Now, let's read this. Herod the Great was a villain. This is right out of the encyclopedia. A wicked king who saw the baby Jesus was a threat and wanted to murder him. Herod the Great was not completely Jewish. He was born in 73 BC. Check this out. To an Idumean man named Antipater and a woman named Cyprus, who was the daughter of an Arab sheik. He died when? In 4 BC. That's when he died. If he died in 4 BC, What is 2 years before that? What year is that? Remember, you count down. He died in 4 BC, but 2 years earlier would be 6 BC. So every child that was born in 6 BC, and then a year later is 5 BC, a year later is 4 BC. He died in 4 BC. All right, that's important. Watch this. So Jesus, put me right here. Now I'm going to show you the year Jesus was born. If according to the encyclopedia, if he died in 4 BC, 2 years before that is 6 BC. Because remember, in the BC era, you're counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. If he died in 4, 2 years before that is 6. That's when Jesus was born. 6 BC. We know that. The Bible don't have to tell us that. All we got to do is look in world history. Watch this. At 5 BC, Jesus is 1 year old. 4 BC, Herod died. Jesus is how old? 2. In 2 BC, he's 4. 1 BC is 5. And remember, when you go from 1 BC to 1 AD, it just goes from 1 to 1 again. It changes to AD. So in 1 AD, Jesus is 6. 2 AD, he is 7. Keep going. In 7 AD, I'm adding 5 to it. I'm just jumping up. In 7 AD, he's 12. Add 13 more years, and 20 AD, Jesus is 25 years old. Remember what I said. Come right here. If you subtract 483 from the year that the command was given, you'll come up to 25. Y'all remember I said that? That's 25 AD. Let's go back. 25 AD, Jesus is 30 years old. He was anointed to start his ministry. That means, how long was Jesus' ministry? 3.5 years. So Jesus died in the year 28 AD. Can you go back up there? Now, his ministry lasted for 3.5 years, right? Now check this out. What's the next slide show? Herod Antipas was one of the conspirators who carried out the condemnation and execution of Jesus Christ. More than 30 years earlier, his father, Herod the Great, had tried but failed to murder the young Jesus by slaughtering all the boys under 2 years old in Bethlehem. Keep going. Now, I'm going to stop there. Now, I'm going to end this right here. I want you to go back to a couple of slides where I had the 483.69 minus the year when the command was given. What I just showed you all is this, and I'm going to give you some homework, and I'm going to prove to you that he died in 28 AD. Now, the command was given. This is the 70 weeks of Daniel. From the time that the command was given, it's going to be 69 weeks till you get to the most holy. The most holy is Jesus. The command was given in the 7th year of the king's reign. We know that he became king in what year? Did he become king? There was a slide I had. If you put up the slides, I'll tell you where to go. This is, you can take this now to the bank. This is pretty much it. Are you there yet? Yes. Go one slide before that. He tells Daniel, understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 60. 60 is 3 times 20, which is 60, and 2 weeks. 62 and 7 is 69. Let's go to the next slide. That's 483 years it's going to be to the Messiah when the command is given. Keep going to the next slide. Artaxerxes is now the king. He gives the command to Ezra. Keep going. Keep going. It was in his go back. It was in the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king's reign. Go forward. Go forward. He was given a letter. Go forward. Go forward. Go forward. And he became king in 465 BC. Keep going. When you look at the year that he came in charge, when you go down, remember in 465 BC, you go 465, 464, 463, 462, you count down. 465 minus the 7, which means in the 7th year of his reign, it was year 458 BC. He gives the command. Now go to the next slide. You got to subtract 69 times 7, which is 483, from 458 BC. That would take you to 25 years in the AD era, or AD. It would take you to AD 30 is what it's going to do. Keep going. Yeah. Okay, yes. It would take you 25 years into the AD era, which would be 25 AD. You got that? 25 AD. When you subtract 483 from 458, you're going to come into the number 25, right? Now it's 25 AD. What we showed you that Jesus was born in 6. When you add 6 and 25, that's 30. Keep going. Keep going. We went through all of this. Herod's after him. It's 2 years. Go to Egypt. Go to Egypt. Go back. Go back. Herod dies in 454 BC. 2 years before that is 6 BC. Go to the next slide. Jesus is born. You got to use the encyclopedia to calculate this. Keep going. Keep going. Go back. In the year 25 AD, Jesus is now 30 years old. If he's born in 6 BC and 25 AD, he is now 30. He's baptized. And 3 years later, he dies in 28 AD. Okay? Now, this is over. I want you to do this. I want you to go to calendar.com. And I'm going to read this to you and show you what day of the week Jesus was crucified on. We're going to go to Daniel, the 9th chapter, verse 27. If I can tell you the day of the week that he was crucified on, Daniel 9 and 24, I'm going to read this. Verse 25, we read that, but I want you to look at verse 27, Daniel 9 and 27. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. That 1 week is 69 plus 1 more week is what? 70. He's going to confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week, he's going to cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Meaning that Jesus, there's not going to be any more need to sacrifice animals. Now, those, I have an audience here, so y'all can do this at home. Somebody put up 7. What's the middle number of 7? Put 3 fingers on one side and 3 fingers on another side. So what day of the week, what's in the middle? What number? Half, but what day of the week? So put up 7 fingers. Wednesday. You got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 days here. Then you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay? Wednesday. Jesus was killed on a Wednesday. Daniel tells you that. Jesus was also killed, you know what feast day Jesus was killed on? Passover. Very good, my brother. You've been studying a lot. What's your first name again? Tobiah. You've been studying. Jesus was killed on the Passover. Does anybody know what day that the Passover is on? What month? What day of the first month? Exodus the 12th chapter, the 14th day of the first month of Abib. So therefore, we need to prove that the 14th of Abib was on a what day in AD 28? A Wednesday, right? Write that down. Abib, the 14th, or Nisan, that's another word for it, the 14th in AD 28. I'm telling you it's on a Wednesday according to this scripture. I want you all to go to a website called calendar.com, or you can go to NASA. Put in the Hebrew month, Nisan or Abib, the 14th, and you will jump up and down when you see AD 28 on Abib, the 14th, was on a Wednesday, the same week of the day of the week that Daniel told he was going to be cut off. In the midst of the week, in the midst of his ministry, he's going to cause the sacrifices and oblation to cease. I rest my case and my point. You can take this Bible to the bank. You can use scientific evidence, encyclopedia history. Herod died in 4 BC. Jesus was born in 6 BC. In 458, the command was given, subtract 69 times 7, which is 483. That would take you to AD 25. And if AD 25, Jesus was born in 6 BC, count from 6 BC to 25 AD. He's 30 years old. You can't be a priest until you're 30 years old. That's why he couldn't get baptized until he was 30. That's why he could not start his ministry until he was 30. 3.5 years later, in the midst of the week, he was cut off on Passover, on Nisan or Abib. Some of you Hebrew people say Abib or Avib. I'm not Hebrew. I speak English. He died on the 14th day because he took the place of the Passover lamb. And you can go to calendar.com or NASA's website, put in that date, and look at that. That date was on a Wednesday in the middle of the week in that year. Scientific evidence, proof evident. This is the most authentic book in world history. Israel, don't throw it away. Don't say that it's somebody else's book. Don't say that I don't want to have nothing to do with it. It's made up. This is your history. And I can prove to you that every prophecy in this book existed. Here's the most important thing. If I can prove, which I have, beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a proof, will you say that scientific evidence, beyond proof evident, presumptuous, great, I did that. Whatever prophesies in this, whatever prophecy comes in this book next, you can take it to the bank. What did Jesus say? In the last days, it would be like unto Sodom and Gomorrah. Our laws have changed to allow things to coexist like Sodom and Gomorrah. Then he says, when you see the abomination of the desolation stand in the holy place, and we know who the abomination of the desolation is, it's the Catholicism Rome government. When you see them in Israel, which you're going to see, because they're buying land there today, every landmark in Israel, every tourist point, they have a cathedral within yards of that. So therefore, it's already in motion. You are living in Bible prophecy. And if you're not in that first resurrection, you're going to be in trouble. Because I did a lesson last week called Translation of the Saints. Y'all look at it. It's a very important lesson. You're going to find out how we become translated at that resurrection. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't go nowhere. If you find it in your heart, go to bethelhouseofgod.org. Please hit the donate button. We're trying to get more cameras. Y'all saw the technical difficulty we had earlier because we're trying to get the right equipment. Please help us. Whatever you want to do, please help donate so we can get this gospel out. I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. live. We won't have this technical difficulty because we're going to be here at 11 o'clock getting it together. I'll see you at 1 o'clock p.m. tomorrow live right here with the congregation. The lesson tomorrow is going to be how to kick the hell out of Satan. How to kick the hell out of Satan. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock p.m. See you then. Be blessed. Don't forget to hit that donate button, bethelhouseofgod.org. Bless you.